Hello, and welcome to the Business Spotlight. This is an initiative to help businesses connect to businesses. We're going to highlight great companies that you may not know about yet. The goal is to help expand your network and share some of our favorite resources. So listen to Spotlights, broaden your community, and discover how businesses utilize technology to achieve success. To do that, though, you need to keep listening. Let's dive right in. Hello, everyone, and welcome to AA Solutions Business Spotlight. So with me today, I have Mark Miller from Payroll Select, and we're going to be talking about Payroll Select. What we want to do with the Business Spotlight is we really want to highlight local businesses to the Toledo area, and especially ones that we interact with and just are great for you guys to know about. So we're going to dive into exactly how Payroll Select operates, what what am I trying to think of? What you guys are in business to do, I guess.
Yeah.
And how you interact with customers, and we'll wrap up with your tech strategy because that's what we do here at AA Solutions.
Perfect.
So if you don't mind, go ahead and tell us more about yourself and about Payroll Select.
So I've been in the payroll industry for over 20 years. I started off at one of the national companies, joined another local company. They ended up selling the business, and so created an opportunity. I started my own. And really the whole premise behind it was somewhat of a gap in the marketplace, in that on the national level you had the rich and services companies, a lot of technology that they were bringing forward, but they didn't have a relationship. They weren't really a business partner. They're just a provider to their clients. So I looked to start Payroll Select, where we could take the technology, bring that down to a local level where we could support it and develop the relationship so we could better understand their business, to implement it and service them in a way that they deserve. So that's what we did. I started Payroll Select 13 years ago yesterday, actually. So it's been good. It's been a good run. Most of our clients are here in Northwest Ohio, Southeast Michigan. We do have clients in other parts of the country, but pretty much everything has a relationship back here to Toledo. Currently we're filing taxes in most states just because of salespeople, people that are out. You guys, for example, have people throughout the country. So, we're doing that kind of work. So that's kind of the founding, the beginning of the business.
So what made you want to really take that more relationship approach? Because I know sometimes we get ahead of in business, you think task first, like what do we need to get done? So how did you come back around to prioritizing the relationship first?
I think a lot of that stems back to I grew up in a locally owned business, in a family-owned business here in Toledo that was a very service-oriented business, and I think that's just ingrained in me. At the end of the day, we really do put the customer first. We don't just say it, we do it. To the extent that we will make sacrifices in other areas of the business to do what's right for the customer. And I think that just goes back again to the way I was raised,
That's awesome. And congratulations on 13 years.
Yeah,
That's
thanks.
Incredible.
Thanks.
Of course, you're celebrating it as we're getting into the fall season.
Right.
I scheduled an appointment for October 13th the other day, and I think it's a Monday this year.
Yes, it's a Tuesday. Yeah.
Oh, Tuesday.
Because I just scheduled one for the 12th.
There we go.
That was a Monday. Yeah.
I was like, definitely not scheduling one for a Sunday then. But no, congratulations, because that's a huge milestone to reach, and that's impressive. So. Yeah,
it's been fun.
So with that, what are some of the services that you do provide for your clients?
Yeah, so when I first started the business, we primarily focused in the payroll and time and attendance, meaning, we did the direct deposits, we did all the tax calculations, depositing, filings, that sort of thing. And people could do that through an online system, or call it in, fax in, whatever. But it was really confined to that. The market has changed and the needs have changed, and I can get into that here in a bit, but now we offer more HR services and more HCM, as it is human capital management. And I can get into that here for a second, but it's more the broad stroke of working with the employee from hire or all the way from recruitment all the way through the full life cycle of an employee. So today we still do the payroll. That's the core of what we do, and the time and attendance. But we also have the applicant tracking, employee onboarding, benefit enrollment, online benefit enrollment, performance management, and career development. And I told you I'd get into it, let's do it now. But the whole premise behind that is several years ago, businesses kind of made the recognition that where we always had marketing as a strategy, we knew where we were going to fit in the marketplace. And we drove our message to that, whether we were low cost or we were going to be high quality and not worry about cost, whatever that might be. We had a marketing strategy, we had a finance strategy. How much debt did we want to carry? How do we want to finance operations, so on and so forth. We had strategies to different areas of the business, and there was some of this recognition that our people, are one of our major assets, and we need to have a strategy behind them. While we don't necessarily write the strategy, we try to provide the technologies to help you fulfill your strategy. So all the way from, and in these strategies, we look at everything that touches the employee, all the way from, the first experience they have when they're coming in and applying or trying to find us, right? All the way through the interviews and on through to their experiences when they come into the organization. And, then within the organization, how do we take the talent that we've gone out and recruited, we found, and optimize them, right? And so that's really where we're at now in today's world, is how do we reduce some of that burden on the employers to fulfill that strategy, so they can go out and, in the perfect scenario, they're out meeting with the employees and having more of a personal relationship with them, right? Instead of in the background doing the transactional pieces and so on and so forth.
Yeah, I think that's what we're pushing too with the with the software and things that we provide, is getting back to what you're there to do.
Yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, we're not here to transpose data across multiple points. We're not here to sit down and try to compile it, so on and so forth. That should, in today's world, that should all be done, right? I mean, that should be something we should be taking our time and saying, okay, now what does this data tell us, right? And how do we make, not to be cliche-ish, I suppose, but data-driven decisions, right? So how do we take that data and turn that into decision versus taking all of our time? Yeah.
And I'm sure you're dealing with, too, with smartphones and all of the technology we have right now. Everything that people look up, it's there instantly.
Yeah.
So now your customers are expecting, if I want to run a report, I kind of expect it.
Yeah. Yeah, that's right. And again, if the whole strategy behind it, certainly there's a back-end analytics side, which we talked about, but there's also the employee experience, right? And this notion that employees are a strategy to a business and working with them. And the reality is today smartphones are here. I mean, I don't remember the number exactly, but I want to say it's around 77% of Americans have a smartphone. So yeah, I mean, certainly to work within that, have an app that you can access, your employee information, not only from the employer, but the employee, because we want the employees to be engaged in the experience too, right? And engaged in the software. So that's, apps are a big piece.
Yeah, right. And then bringing in where you now have more of almost an HRIS, where you have so many more things in one.
Right.
What has been your response from your customers to the changes and updates that you've made to your systems?
It's interesting. So the software has been around. I find that Toledo lags the market a little bit in our adoption of technology, right? So while other markets have been running and providing that technology and that service to their clients, we've lagged a little bit in that. I would say within the last 2 to 3 years, we've seen a lot of interest and people saying, yeah, I want to engage in that experience and I want to move forward with that. And starting to look at the software and how that can help them in their strategy to doing it. Yeah, we've seen a fair amount of uptick in that in recent times, particularly in our local market. When I look out across the nation, they've been doing it for 8 years plus now,
Yeah.
Which is a good thing. From us here, we've let other people vet the technology, right?
Mm-hmm.
So they've kind of worked through what works and what doesn't, and made the tweaks. And so by the time it gets here, we're good to go. It's part of the, I suppose, the mid-cycle, late cycle adapters, right?
So you're fortunate because you don't even have to go do all this this deep market research. You can actually just go and look at everything that's already there, but what's popular, what people are liking, what's actually functional and operationable, and adapt the best players in that area.
Yeah, so we've tried to take and build a network throughout the country of other, I'll say payroll, service providers, where we can leverage their experiences too and bring them here to Toledo so that we're not redeveloping the wheel. We can all network and say, hey, this is what's worked well for us, this is what hasn't worked well for our customers. Because the reality is when you talk about implementing a full HCM system, it's a big task. I tell people all the time that the dollar investment, right, is really not where it's at. It's the time investment. Now, you'll make that up in short order by getting everything automated, but there's going to be time that you're going to have to spend up front to make that happen. So the more that we can network with people and start to hone in on strategies and start to hone in on best practices of making that more efficient and be more that partner to our clients, the more advantage we have and the more value we provide.
So then how do you take that and how do you help your own clients adopt the systems that you have?
So, one of the challenges inevitably that people have is you take a very flexible process, and now you need to build it into steps that are followed and repeated every time. Advantage, right? We're doing the same things, so we build consistency. Disadvantage is now where we had the ability to kind of pivot and move along the way, we start to lose that a little bit. So it's the ability to sit down with a client and say, okay, let's take your strategies and let's take that or your process and start to build that into something, and we can do it in different silos. And that's where networking throughout the country is to say, hey, we've had implementation stall because of this. And so when we go out in the very beginning, we can say, hey, this is where historically things can stall. We put it as a focus point, as a milestone in our process. And then clients, we can work with clients and say, hey, this is what we're going to get into. Let's talk about now. Let's start getting that out in the open and know what we can do. So we can either wait and do that ourselves and figure it out over the course of a few years, or we can leverage the relationships and the people that have done it and bring that here.
You're actually pulling your resources then.
Yeah,
not
exactly.
Just letting them float.
Right.
No, that's amazing. And then for those who are curious, if somebody is going to do the full system with everything that you can offer, how long do you think that takes on average for a company in the area to?
I would say really so I get the question all the time of how long does this take to implement, right? And the answer is I can't tell you. And the reason I can't tell you is it all depends on you, right? If you're dedicated, if you have a team dedicated that is bringing in and working with us and giving what we need, realistically, 6 months to a year to get it all put in, if we're clipping along at a decent pace. But if you keep getting pulled off into other projects, and we're sitting here saying, hey, what do we want to do about this, so on and so forth, obviously it can take longer. But I would say six months would be a good steady pace. When I say fully implemented, that's all the way the applicant tracking, all the way on through to performance management and career development, which is an e-learning where you can build out courses and trainings that employees can sign up for. So, and everything in between, from the basics, from, what we call, when we look to implement and get something set up, we always try to identify the quick hitters. Because the more time we can save you, theoretically, the more time you're going to give us so that we can continue to build on. So the first thing we do is we sit down and look at the quick hitters, which is a lot of times your onboarding process, is what Excel spreadsheets and other data systems are you using that you're currently combining. We can import all that. So to get the payroll and the time and attendance up and going, you depending on the size and scope of the company, you're looking anywhere from a week or two to 3 to 4 weeks, depending on the scope. But when you start building out the rest of it, is where you really start to, get into, more of what your process is. And like I said, they all tend to be pretty manual. So it's the conversation of how do we take the manual and bring that in. And, you always get into Tommy's not going to be able to do that, right? Whoever the employee is, well, yeah, they can. We just have to work with them. So
They can. Most people, they haven't, and they're scared of it because
Correct.
it's new. But people are extremely versatile, hardy people, beings. They adapt really well,
yeah,
as we've seen.
change is tough, right? No matter how you do it.
Mm-hmm.
So.
And we've seen a lot more of that this year. And so kind of shifting to, obviously, you've picked up and adapted as the area has for what your customers need. How have you continued to shift, though, with this year, with COVID-19 and businesses going through so many changes themselves?
Yeah, so COVID-19 provided some opportunity for us to show value. One is there's a lot of compliance behind a lot of the different stimulus packages or relief packages, whatever you want to call them. There's a lot of compliance behind that, and a lot of things that were passed from a legislative perspective, but very little guidance in how you're actually supposed to do it. So that consumed a lot of time. We also took the opportunity to say, hey, let's start to get people more paperless, right? And so when I look pre-COVID, I'm going to say about 70% of our clients were receiving some sort of paper or stubs every pay period. When I look at that today, probably 20% of our clients do. And we made the push to say, hey, listen, in a time when social distancing, remote workforces, and everything in between is here, we need to adapt to that. And so we got with our customers and said, let's do this. Now's the time. We'll help you. We'll get it rolled out. We have the time because through a span of COVID, everybody just hunkered down. So we weren't getting the regular move business forward, projects and questions and that sort of thing. So instead of sitting back on our heels, if you will, we decided to get a little aggressive and push out the getting employees engaged online, getting our employees engaged, or our employers, our clients engaged in the back end of the software, whether that's just pulling reports or getting more hands-on with their payroll. So, and it proved to be extremely successful for us. With that, comes now we're looking and saying, okay, where we always had a contact with our clients every other week, every payday, we don't have that necessarily all the time because people are online now. So now we're turning around and saying, okay, where we've had a little bit more of a reactive approach, now we need to be proactive where we're reaching out and, how are things going? For example, I got a call from one of your team members yesterday. I actually thought it was you confirming today, but you did that this morning. But, just, hey, how's it going? Wanted to see if we could set up a training, that sort of thing. So we're starting to implement those things as our clients have become more ingrained online. We're needing to stay in touch with them because the reality is, when we talk about a local company, one of the advantages we always had was relationships, right? I could take you to lunch. I could step out to your business. We met, bumped into each other at the mall or whatever service organization, nonprofit we were involved with. We'd bump into each other. We don't bump into each other anymore because pretty much everything's shut down and virtual. So, now you have to find the different strategies to, if you look and say, working with a local company, whether it's Payroll Select or Blitz or whoever that may be, the advantage was the relationship. It was one of the number one when you talk to people. Well, now you need to work even harder at that relationship because it's not just it's just not as intuitive as it had been. So so from a COVID perspective, good news on the operational side, from the sales marketing side, it's created a whole other set of challenges that I think in the end will be a good thing. You know.
Yeah. No, it's kind of cool to see some of the shifts because now we're opening up a new form of virtual communication that we didn't realize was so readily available. Like
Right.
you can have face-to-face contact with somebody in California.
Yeah.
And it's not that difficult to manage. The flip side is those local connections that are so valuable are kind of scaled back on the face-to-face.
Yep.
So how have your customers responded then to the transition for communication?
You know, it might be too early to tell, but
Mhm.
by and large, I think, you know, again, because there's been so much compliance change behind the CARES Act and behind the Families First Corona Relief Act, which were two of the big acts that were passed. You know, we've become a pretty big resource in that time. So while, you know, from looking forward perspective, I see our communication with our clients maybe dropping on a regular, you know, as I would say, a reactive basis. But in today, it's actually increased. But it has nothing to do with the technology side and the long term. It has everything to do with the pandemic and, you know, the again, the relief behind it, because people are looking at us saying, hey, I have an employee out that's sick with COVID or that has been exposed to COVID, and there's monies that they can get, you know, through payroll. So how does that work? What do I have to do? What do I need to do? So they're calling us, and it's providing a lot of interaction. But it's the long term, you know, as we set people up to deal with the pandemic online and be distanced, you know, as that stimulus and everything falls off, you know, now you get back into business as normal or some sort of new norm, and that's what you're trying to adjust to. But you always want to be ahead, right? You don't want to lag, and that's what we're trying to do. So, tough answer to your question because I don't know.
But it sounds like you're on the right track to do it.
Yeah,
So,
I think so.
no. All right. Well, that kind of pivots into our last point with how would you describe your tech strategy with as you evolve over the years, as you prepare to transition into whatever this new normal might be? What is your tech strategy? How do you plan to keep your systems up to date, your own communication with your customers up to date?
Yeah, so currently as it sits, all of our services are hosted on Amazon Web Service. And then our actual technology we license. We work very closely with our provider or software company on development type issues. So really where we're really looking to expand in that realm from a technology perspective is to drill into, you know, the real operational strategy or the real operational piece of the software. You know, what makes sense and what's kind of a cool to have. What sells well, but really what works, right? Mm-hmm. And those are the conversations that we're having as far as fulfilling that market, because the space itself has become much more competitive. And there's companies out there that you know, have started up and had a lot of capital behind them that have gone on. That some of them have some pretty good product, you know. So, you know, it's taking and making the system and continuing to develop, make it operationally to where you really don't need a training, right? It's intuitive. And it's fairly intuitive, but how do you make it even more? So you buy a new iPhone, nobody shows you how to use the thing. Well, maybe your kids, but by and large, you know, you don't sign up for a training on your iPhone, you know, so how do you continue to work towards that? Mm-hmm. Is one piece. Then the other is, you know, the consolidation of databases, so that you don't have, you know, 12 different databases all trying to link together, and what's the master one and who's feeding what, you know, as far as that, you know, it's integrating everything into one. So in today's world, we're pretty well integrated into one. But, you know, continue that strategy and tack on pieces to that can be developed within the same system instead of having to go out and develop some sort of APIs or ways to communicate with other systems to bring in the data. So.
No, it's good to hear. It's very interesting to hear, knowing how we handle our systems, to hear the changes and development of yours too, of course.
Yeah.
So,
Yep. You know, the market ultimately drives it. You know, what are people wanting, and the whole notion of an HCM terminology 10, 12 years ago really wasn't there. You know, we used terms of HRIS, which talked more to tracking just the personnel files, if you will, that we kept. You know, and then it was the recognition that, hey, there's more here, so let's build out into where we can touch more areas, and I continue to see that happen. You know, 20 years ago, I think that there was a race to who's going to have the employee portals that everybody accesses. Was it going to be the benefit companies? Was it going to be the payroll companies? You know, all these different people were fighting for this space. I think that fight is slowly dwindling. But you know, it's to our industry and to us as a company of how do we continue to gain that momentum, and that only comes with how much more can we allow people access to. So there's just one spot to go, right?
mm-hmm. Well, yeah, because I think now the user portals are expected. People want to go in and be able to manage their own stuff. It's very hands-on.
It's the user portals are expected, and the app is wanted.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I want to be able to do everything from my phone.
Mm-hmm.
So
well, some people don't even have computers these days.
Right. Yeah. So to have it, you know, enabled on a smart device is critical, and that's where really when, you know, again, kind of back to that one database, that single sign-on, that you know, ultimately that's going to drive down to an app. And you know, who knows what's on the horizon? What, you know, somebody like Apple's going to come up with next, but it's probably going to be on our watch.
Oh well, the widgets was the iOS 14 came out, and
Yeah.
so everybody was doing the widgets.
Yeah, I mean, we're doing widgets. It's, you know, but
Mm-hmm. I admit I customize mine, but I'm waiting to be able to directly customize the look of the app.
yeah,
So, but no, it's always evolving, it's always changing, and so being able to keep up with that is
Yeah.
huge.
it is. You know, and yeah, so you're keeping up with the technology side. You're keeping up with the compliance side. You know, that comes with us, as well as just keeping up with new developments, and so it's fun. I think.
Yeah,
So
it's certainly interesting.
yeah.
I guess to wrap up, I have one final question, and then
Yeah.
that's if you approach somebody right now and they asked, why should they go with Payroll Select, what would you say?
Because we'll take care of you.
There we go.
Yeah.
You've got all the services, you've got the...
Yeah. I mean, I say that, but it's true. At the end of the day, we have the services that compete at any level.
Mm-hmm.
But more importantly than having the services is the team that backs it, that says, hey, listen, you know, let's get you going on this because where you are in business right now, that makes sense. Or, hey, let's not do that because you as a business aren't there yet. So an example would be, and I like to tell people when I talk to them, is sometimes, particularly when we talk about the full HCM, you know, applicant tracking all the way through, we've seen before where these companies will throw the Hail Mary pass because they can't figure out the management, they can't figure out their people. Their people are 100% driving the bus, right? We had one client that changed their pay frequency because they didn't think they could get people to come to work for them because they're having a hard time hiring. Well, that's not your problem, right? You have a much deeper problem, but they threw a Hail Mary pass and said, well, let's get an HCM system in here so that we can better manage our people. And it was kind of like, well, guys, your problem isn't your system, your problem is your management team, right? And so, you know, it's being able to have those conversations and say, hey, you know, if I'm just a salesman for another company, yeah, I'll take that order all day, right? Because let's cash out. But the reality is it's not the right thing for you. So let us sit down and talk about what's going on, figure out what works for you that we can provide. And if there's other things we can help you out by putting you in touch with people who can help you, right? So that's really it, is the relationship. Know your customer, know what they want, know what their limitations are, and know what their expectations are. And once you know that, then you can get them to where they need to be and in the right spot. So.
No, it sounds good to me. Sounds
Yeah.
like the people I want to be working with.
All right, that's good. Good thing you are.
I know, right?
So.
All right. So I think that's it for today.
Great.
Thanks, everybody, for tuning into our Business Spotlight. And thanks, Mark, for coming today and sharing
Absolutely
about
appreciate the opportunity.